What you gonna do with all that junk? All that junk inside your trunk.
What you gonna do with all that drunk?
I don't know how to sing like Fergie.
I'm gonna get you drunk. Get you love drunk off that hump.
Dude, that was like the best Fergie impression I've ever heard.
It was kind of a mix between Fergie and Jesus, I would say.
Welcome to Drunk Real Estate. Grab a drink and enjoy the show.
Hey there, welcome to episode 70 of Drunk Real Estate. I'm Kyle Wilson, Ashley Wilson's husband, and I'm joined by my three best friends that anyone could have, starting with AJ. How's it going, buddy?
It's going good, man. You know, busy. We're having a event tonight, but going good. I got my red cup with my Diet Coke. I am set and ready to go.
Are you doing the Kamala Harris fundraising tonight?
Yep, that's right. Everybody's trying to pull together to see if she can win here. That's what everybody in Idaho cares about.
Didn't she raise like $1 billion or something?
Yeah, she's still falling behind.
So why do I keep getting texts
like
about donating if she's already raised $1 billion? Like, you need more than $1 billion, really?
Apparently.
Mauricio, what's going on, buddy?
Dude, I'm doing great. I for some reason I didn't realize that we had bumped up the pod an hour, so I had to scramble and find my little piscola, which I know you love.
I love
Kyle. So I have no ice though, so it's a little bit on the warm side, which is not ideal, but it's good enough.
Warm cola piss. It's nothing better. Jay, what's up, buddy?
I'm doing great. I'm drinking dry red wine tonight. I know I normally do, but tonight I have to because for everybody listening, Kyle and I have a little competition going on. We're both trying to lose some weight. Kyle is worried he's getting a little fat, and so just as a good friend, I'm going to support him. And
good for you, Jay. We didn't want to say anything. Good for you. Thank you.
Yeah. So doing this weight loss competition with him, and I mean, I don't mean to brag.
Was it a competition? Are we competing, Jay? I wasn't sure.
Wait, wait a minute. Where was my invite? I didn't even get an invite. I would crush both of you put together. What's the
Mauricio, you look too good.
What's
you
the
look too good, man.
We literally started yesterday. If you want
Let's
in,
do it. Let's do it. What are we doing? The biggest body fat percentage change? Did you guys already do a body fat thing?
Did you go
the
and actually
4-hour
buy
body? Just in 4 hours? I'm down. I can do this for 4 hours.
So Tim Ferriss, and if you guys don't know Tim Ferriss, 4-Hour Workweek guy, he wrote a book called The 4-Hour Body, and it's basically Atkins with a couple modifications, but he also talks about how to bulk up, and he talks about some other stuff, how to get better sleep, and
you're not answering my question. My question is, what's the bet? Like, what are you guys doing? I don't give a shit about the
biggest loser. Well, no. So that's the thing. I asked Jay, I'm like, are we going to track what we eat? Are we going to do a competition? Are we going to do all that stuff? And he's like, I don't want to track. I don't want to do a competition. I got to go to Vegas for 3 days in the middle. And then I was like, so what are we doing? Just sending each other inspirational quotes? Like, what kind of diet challenge is this?
Okay, if Mauricio's in, I will do a wager.
So the wager has to be you have to go get your body fat percentage tested tomorrow, and then it's the biggest body fat percentage drop.
Yeah, but Kyle wants to do this thing for like 3 weeks or something.
4 weeks.
Perfect.
4 weeks.
I'm in. 4 weeks. Perfect.
Okay,
and
I got a scale that measures it already. So I already.
No, I need an accurate one, dude. You can't take the.
I'm not going and testing that shit. Fuck that.
All right, let's go. AJ's got a Kamala Harris or whatever.
Yeah, we got to get him to that
fundraiser. Yep. Let's go.
Yeah. So anyway, that's why Jay's drinking red wine, because apparently Tim doesn't like alcohol unless it's red wine. Which, if you read the book, it's kind of just because that's what he likes drinking, and so he didn't want to take it off the list. So I was like, it's called the slow carb diet. If you really don't want to read the whole book, just look up slow carb diet and read an article on it, and you'll have the whole thing. And I was like, but I need something that has no carbs, no sugar, right? Because that's what the basis of the diet is. And I'm a little like, it's an earlier podcast today and I want a little pick me up. So I grabbed a Monster and I was like, what can I mix with this Monster that has no carbs and no sugar?
Pisco.
And so I found this, it's called Clear Rum. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, guys. It's clear. It's very smooth and it mixes great.
I've heard that stuff is amazing.
Actually, yeah, I was at the Eagles game and I got a Clear Rum margarita. It was excellent. I had like 4 of them. It's great. Anyway, so yeah, that's what I'm drinking.
So wait a second. Are you allowed to drink Monster on this diet?
Why not?
Okay, I'm in.
It's got aspartame and
No, it doesn't. It has zero sugars. Zero
It's not
total
about
sugar.
health. It's about
doesn't have
losing
any
weight.
sweetener
It's
in there?
about losing weight.
Zero
It's not about
sugars.
health. It's about
You're
the
allowed
largest
sweeteners, by the
body
way, Jay.
fat
I don't know.
drop.
Jay must only be on page 3. You're allowed sweeteners. There's
No,
certain
it says
sweeteners
no.
you're allowed.
It says no sweeteners.
No, there's look it up, Jay. He has a whole blog and everything. I've been doing this a lot longer than you. Don't come in on day 1 and act like you're an expert, okay? I know what I'm doing.
I lost 3 pounds yesterday.
Let's
I'm winning. At this rate, in 90 days, I'm going to weigh 0.
Jay took the biggest shit ever and he weighed himself after. All right, let's get into this. We're talking automated property management. So we were just we mentioned we just got back from Mexico BPCon, and I actually spent quite a bit of time working a booth there for our other company, Conference Connect. And I was talking with the other vendors because there's a bunch of downtime, and I noticed there was like 5 different vendors all pitching their automated property management software. So apparently this is like the trend. Like everyone's going to this automated property management software. And with AI being all the buzz these days, obviously it's on the forefront of most people's minds. But my question to AJ is, because I know you do a little bit of this, is automated property management software really the game changer that all these companies are pitching it as?
It really depends. So, first of all, when you're dealing in real estate, obviously there's a lot of differences in the assets themselves. So, commercial assets and how you have to manage them is different in as far as the overall demand, right? Or the overall workload. Now, it's basically broken into 2 parts, though. You have the actual property, like the property management as far as the asset goes, the physical side of it, right? There's no automating that portion. You can't automate trimming the grass. That doesn't work. So
Actually, have you seen those robots? The guy down the street from me's got it. This robot just goes and cuts his grass. Just saying, but continue.
AJ, you got to stop with these limiting. AJ, you got to stop with these limiting beliefs, man. You got.
I do have limiting beliefs. You guys do that, and I'll make sure somebody goes and checks out my doors and things like that. So there's the actual, like, if a door breaks, somebody's got to fix it. You got to go check up and make sure. Somebody needs to swing by the property, right? I think there can be this like over exaggeration where it's like you just buy a property on your computer screen and then it's just running, which that is far from the truth. But the automation side that most people talk about is all the operations. It's the processing of tenants. It's the getting tenants in. It's the money, all the back end stuff, right? Now, some industries like ours in self-storage has a lot more things going on as far as operations go. So that's actually a much bigger deal. We actually have to have employees on site, things like that. So you can reduce the payroll, which increases the net income, especially on smaller properties. And that's a big deal. So the payment processing, the advertising, all of that operational stuff, that is really what we're talking about automation. Now, the big thing is, though, the connecting of the tenants and the back end with the physical asset. So this is where the hardware comes in, right? So the software and the hardware or the physical asset connecting. Now, we started doing this like 6 years ago where we actually built in and were the first people in our industry, us and Travis, we teamed up with this guy, company called Noki, and we wired in hardware that would talk with apps and software. So we could send out an ad. Somebody could click on the ad. They could rent a unit, and then they could open up all the doors, individual units, everything else with their phone, their ads. Then they could check, they could move out, all done on the phone. Payment processing, right? All that kind of stuff done. So that's been the next big thing over the last few years is integrating hardware with the software. So now you're taking the operation portion and the hardware portion and you're integrating them through this whole entire, what would consider the life cycle of that tenant or that customer through the real estate. And that's really what we're talking about. Now, some real estate, this makes a bigger deal, obviously, in some asset classes where automation and other commercial real estate asset, it's not nearly as big of a deal. Think about hotels, right? I think this is where a lot of this stuff is really coming in. When you have lots of activity that has to be serviced at the actual location. If you can reduce the amount of servicing that needs to be done via employees and people, that is a huge boost to your net income.
Yeah, the other day at a hotel, I literally on my phone could just I showed up to the hotel, my key was on my phone, and I didn't even have to check in. I just went right up. It said, "This is your room." You say check in, and you just walk right up. I didn't have to talk to anybody.
That's how our storage facilities are done.
The crazy thing is, I mean, historically, the what we see with income and expenses for commercial real estate is that they are tied to inflation. And so historically, what we see is that there's some operating expense ratio number. And so some people may have heard of the 50% rule, or basically this rule that some percentage of your income is going to go away to expenses, to ordinary expenses every month. And historically, that's somewhere between 40 and 60%. If it's more than 60%, you're probably being really inefficient. If it's less than 40%, you're probably lying to yourself. And this is multifamily, obviously. Other commercial asset classes are going to be completely different. But in multifamily, like you're looking kind of in that 40 to 55% range. Well, this, and then historically, like what we see with inflation, rents go up 3-4%, depending on what inflation is. Expenses go up 3-4%, and so that expense ratio stays the same. Well, this could have a major impact on that expense ratio, because what we're basically doing is we're removing expenses from the equation. I mean, the most expensive parts of operating most commercial real estate is labor costs. And when you remove that labor cost, when you remove payroll, when you remove employees, when you remove property management companies, basically what you're doing is you're just cutting out 10 to 15% of your total cost of operating your property. And basically what we could see is the typical 50% rule now dropping to 40% rule. Meaning maybe we're going to see 30 to 45% expense ratios in the multifamily space. And again, AJ, you can talk about what you see in storage, what those typical expense ratios are. But this could really change the entire model for how we're evaluating these properties. And the nice thing is, if you can buy a property today, and again, I'm talking about multifamily, I'm sure it works in self-storage and other asset classes. If you can buy a property that has a 50 or 55% expense ratio, and over the course of the 5 years you own it, you can reduce that to a 40% expense ratio. Not only are you getting the bump in revenue from increasing rents and the decrease in cap rate over time, but you're getting a huge boost in NOI just from being able to eliminate a whole bunch of expenses.
Can you guys give some examples though? Like when we're talking kind of high level here, like give me some, like, yeah, give me some specific, how are we automating this stuff?
So once again, we've been doing this for quite a while now in storage. You can buy a property that has a 40%, or let's even say higher, 45%, because a smaller property, the less square footage, the higher that expense load takes on. You have to have an employee there that goes and they sell the tenants, right? They move the tenants in and they get them out. So in order to get new tenants, you have to have a person there. What we do on that is you create, so everything is done on the phone. All of our tenants come through ads, through marketing on the phone. They rent online, just like you're buying anything online, and then they get access to the gate, they get access to the door, and they can move in immediately. The hardware tells us exactly when somebody's going in, when they're in their unit, when the unit's shut, when it's locked. We track them all the time. So
what's your background check process? I guess would be my only issue with that.
Our background check is, did you pay? So that's our background check.
The only reason I'm asking is it's a huge issue with us right now with credit card fraud, and people basically like, it's not even like this person using someone else's credit card, is they create a whole fake identity and a credit card.
You totally avoid that now. So what we do is like our software for our property management system, you hold up your license and you hold up the phone. The software analyzes and actually knows if it's you or if it's a fake person and can read the ID at the same time. So it's the same software that banking uses, right? But it will analyze it. You can take a fake picture of you and put it up and stuff. You can't trick it. It analyzes your face and knows the real one, and it compares it to the ID. And if it's not you, it can't rent, can't process.
We have the same thing. I wasn't sure if you had to like for yours, you had to do that the same level of intensity.
Yes, absolutely. So it's because of that lease contract. And that's really what it comes down to, right? A binding contract that you make sure somebody does. So the lease processing is that the big hurdle that I think everybody was trying to get over. And once we did that in storage, though, it became way easier. And now it's you go online, you rent, you sign the lease right there. You just click, accept, sign in, you pay. Then you go to the gate. Gate opens up off your phone. Go to your door opens, move in. The moment you don't pay, so let's say we run your credit card and your credit card declines, you're immediately locked out of our facility. Everything stops. You can't get in anymore. And then you have to pay all the fees, everything else to get access again. And then when you move out, all you do is move your stuff out. And then when it's the end of the month or whatever that time is, you no longer have your access. So a manager used to have to do the whole move-in process and sell. So now you can go buy a facility. That facility has a 45% expense ratio. Now you take the employee out, you put the hardware in, the software, and now you have a 20% expense ratio on the property. And that obviously boosts your income up dramatically.
So we have a similar process, but we have a little bit more. You sound like you have glowing reviews. We have a little bit more mixed reviews, and I think that's a lot to do with you have to know your demographics and who you're applying this to. So, for example, for these higher class properties, if you're looking A-class properties and the types of tenants who are in that, then this process is very successful. We still have to do like leases. People show up to sign their lease, but almost everything up to that point can be automated. You could do tours the same way, like just with your ID, you could schedule a tour, everything to go and be able to access that unit is all automated. It's got a code that changes every time somebody goes in there. All of that process is automated. You could schedule it online. You don't even have to talk to anybody. All of that's great. And I feel like that, like young working class, like millennials, Gen Z, like love that, right? Like it's this new thing where these young people, they prefer not to talk to somebody. Like the thought of talking to someone on the phone scares them. So it's great for those people, and it works out really well. And they, in the sale, like they just, as you said, they just say, I want to sign and lease and everything's great. We've found with some of your working class, so like your B minus, C plus, kind of that stuff, it's not as effective. First of all, there's more fraud in that space. A lot more people are trying to pull one over on you, so they're finding how to beat these systems. And secondly, I think people just like talking on the phone in that class of society. It's one of those like people hate like when you call in for customer service and you have to go through 84 different button pushes and automated things, and they just want to talk to somebody. The idea we've found actually our conversion rates on leases are like so much higher with someone just making a phone call. So we've shifted back. We did a lot of the automated text, automated emails, stuff like that. And once we started just doing the phone calls back, like our conversions rate just went way up.
We do the same thing, but what we do instead is on site. So it's a consolidation, right? So let's say we had 5 locations where you had to have somebody on location to do the sales, everything else. You automate, but the phone line, especially when it comes to sales, we have a call center that takes all processing, anything processing. But the actual sales, if they call on a phone, complete that sale, that comes in-house. So that comes to HQs here in Boise, Idaho, where we staff, and we have sales people that are sitting there, and they can service all 12,000 units, right, as people are calling, and the close rate is astronomical compared. They call if
we've shifted even follow up. Like if we get an inquiry through an email or through like an online through apartments.com or stuff like that, there's certain class properties where we call them now, and like when they want to schedule a tour, like we're sending somebody to give them the tour, because we've just found a lot of these people, like you actually have squatter issues where like they'll go and they won't leave, and B, like the conversion rates when someone just walking around with them is so much higher. So to Jay's point, when like, yes, okay, you're saving money by not having to pay people to do those things. But if you want to look at your net bottom line, if our conversion rates are so much higher and we can get more people seeing our properties and better conversions, then actually like the hit on our bottom line, like the change isn't as much. So I guess my only thing is like, you really have to know, okay, what class clientele, who's your avatar here, and how far are you going to push it with this automation?
That's interesting, because we haven't seen that in our industry at all. Like there was this big thing where people thought, oh, older generation's going to hate this. It was actually the older generation loves it. Why? Because what 90-year-old lady wants to go and try to work a lock on a metal door to open? Like, you don't want to do that, right? They just want to go in. And then we can replace it if they don't have a smartphone. We have a key fob. So they can get a key fob that they can go in. Either way, it's easier. But where we have the problem is this. There's, you guys probably have the same thing, obviously, but rent levels that really don't justify the hardware. So when cap rates are obviously low and you have a competitive environment, the upfront cost to install the hardware, this can be a big ticket item, right? So if you're buying a facility in an area where the rents are really low, sometimes it doesn't justify the hardware install at that level. So we have another workaround that you use, and it's basically we simplify it and you automate it through email, ads, everything else. But the locks that are on there they're just cheaper, but they're actual locks, but they're still Bluetooth code locks. And the person just gets the code in an email, goes to the gate, opens it up and gets it in. But to actually put in the big hardware, that's where we can see sometimes like you're not getting enough rent to justify adding that on in the purchase price.
Right, because you have to do all the internet connections and integration of all
the
that stuff.
hardware to upgrade a facility or whatnot. It's a chunk of change.
Yeah, I think to Kyle's point is a lot of it has to do with how commoditized the asset class is that we're looking at. So if you take a highly commoditized asset class like self-storage, so if I'm looking at self-storage, the questions I want to know are where is it located and is it climate controlled or not? And other than that, it's based, and obviously, I mean, where it's located is going to play into safety and security and all that. But for the most part, I'm looking at 100 square feet here, 100 square feet there, 100 square feet there. I'm not going to ask a ton of questions. Price is going to be super important to me. When I'm looking at multifamily, it's not just price. I'm going to be looking at amenities. I'm going to be looking at parking, and there's going to be a whole lot more things that makes it less commoditized, more personal, more inefficient when it comes to marketing and sales. And so for something like self-storage, because it's so commoditized, it's easy to basically say, here, look at my unit. You don't need me because any questions you have were answered before you drove up and got in here. And so, and then you have other asset classes. I mean, industrial and warehouse, that's going to be pretty commoditized. Office is going to be non-commoditized. That's going to be very personalized. Retail is not going to be commoditized. And so I think what we're going to see is that automation eventually is probably going to infiltrate every asset class to some degree. But the more commoditized and homogenous an offering is, an asset class is early on, is going to determine how quickly it adopts that technology.
And that's why self-storage was the first. I mean, like other industries were trying it, but like self-storage, it was just, I mean, once it came in, there's certain assets right now that you literally can't buy unless it's automated. The numbers won't work anymore because cap rates adjusted. And how people are buying them, or they're buying them at a 20% expense ratio. So that's the thing is too, the automation, it helps you at first, but once it's standardized, it doesn't help you at all because nobody includes that gap. They say, no.
We're getting into that now. Like everything that we look at and we buy, like it's very hard to find something that hasn't been turned over in the last 5 years. And in the last 5 years, there's always some level of automation. They've already, like, you can look at their T12 and they already have, all these different the technology packages are the big thing now, right? Now they charge for technology packages where it's Bluetooth locks, smart speakers, like stuff like that. Like all of these newer properties have all that stuff already. So there's no real delta that you could push on it.
And a lot of that moving forward could reduce maintenance costs. I mean, imagine putting technology or sensors into HVAC systems. So basically, you call us or you call the property management company and you say, "Hey, my unit isn't cooling." Well, great. I can look at the diagnostics right here to see that your HVAC is having this problem or that problem or no problem, and basically make it a whole lot easier to diagnose and fix issues like that. So, I mean, I think there's other places in the stack where we could potentially be leveraging automation in addition to just the sales and the leasing part.
Where does the AI come in? Because I'm hearing automation, but I haven't heard anything or too much about AI. Is that something that's starting to make its way through it?
Marketing.
We use it.
I mean, AI is tricky for our business. I'll use it as an example. We talked about this in a previous episode, YieldStar, right? So YieldStar is basically an automated rent software. So basically, it monitors the market and figures out, okay, what's the optimal rent at this hour on this day that you could be charging. It's very popular, obviously, in Airbnb as well. A lot of this stuff, automation, actually, Airbnb is surprisingly like on the forefront of a lot of these things. And I don't know if people are just more creative, but like we take stuff from like, oh, Airbnb's implementing this, we're going to do it. But it's a little trickier when you're dealing with residential as opposed to AJ with self-storage, just because of like tenant laws and stuff, right? So that's why the whole YieldStar lawsuit happened. It was basically they determined it was collusion because all of these different properties had these little YieldStar agents, and they all talked together and they figured out what the rent's going to be. So they decided that was, just because it's an AI bot working on your behalf doesn't mean that you're not actually doing it. And the other thing that I see, like if you're like people talked about like reading lease applications, like, oh, AI, can they sift through that and stuff like that? Then you could get into, okay, if an AI determines that the eviction rate from people coming from this area is way too high, we don't want to accept people from that area, and then all of a sudden that's a protected class or something that is primarily in that area, like you can get in trouble for that, for fair housing laws. So I think AI is going to be a little bit tough to fully integrate into this, but with stuff with like AJ for like automated phone calls, things like that for determining, okay, if someone wants to do a call for a maintenance issue or something, like if they want to call in and determining exactly what they want to do that and schedule that, I think AI could probably handle that. But as far as bigger issues, I'd be a little bit more hesitant.
One of the places I think AI is going to play a huge role is on the front end prior to acquisition. So I've been looking at some AI tools in the business space that are really cool. They can take a 10K, which is essentially a public company. So you imagine a Microsoft or a Google or a GM or a Boeing. Every quarter or every year, they need to release some financial statements publicly. And they do that through these filings called 10K filings. And there's some cool AI out there that you can basically just feed it a 10K and it'll go and it'll look and it'll say, here's where this company is doing well, here's where it's being inefficient, here's where its margins are better than other companies in the space, and where margins are lower and things that could potentially be doing better. So if you're an investor, you can potentially say, hey, this company has some opportunity here if they did this, this, and this. I think we're going to see the same thing on the acquisition side in commercial real estate, where you can basically take T12, which is basically a trailing 12-month P&L or a pro forma, and stick that through an AI, and the AI, having knowledge of the space, the market, the local market, the property type, the asset class type, et cetera, can basically say, hey, if you want to really optimize the value add for this property, here are the 10 things you need to do on the revenue side. Here are the 10 things you need to do on the expense side, based on market projections, based on market data, based on data from other properties, et cetera, et cetera. So you can basically go in there and you have a computer essentially telling you, this is your business plan, and this is how you optimize your NOI to optimize the value add.
So I've actually, I don't think I've ever even announced this, but my new software company is launching in the next, well, we'll see, the dev team and everything. It's this year. So
before you say anything more, we do have a marketing contract. If you would like to buy some advertising space on the show, we will allow you to continue talking. Otherwise,
do I have to still pay you guys in Tootsie Rolls, or is that, because I'm fine with it? But
so tell us about your new company.
So it's what the whole point is. We look at this revenue management side and the link, and I'll when it comes out stuff, I'll show you guys later, and you can talk about it. It's like, wait, it's crazy. It doesn't exist right now, and we've been working really hard. It links using AI. That's the point of it, is linking the marketing, the back end, and the revenue management side. And it is meant to take in large amounts of data and overlay it with individual sites. And basically, we are optimizing yield out of square feet. And it's things that, so let me put it this way. When we were doing this on, let's say, 3 properties, it would take us 3 days of 3-4 team members in a room working just to set certain types of rents and everything to do this. And we could not do it obviously to the portfolio. We'd have to hire tons of people. So things like that we could never do. AI now, we can take all this mass data and they can process it immediately. So now we can guide it and we can build it out and it can just do it immediately all the time. Where before, our process to do rev management, things like that, it was we had to stop. We literally couldn't do it. We'd have to hire teams and teams of people. So that's going to, I think people are going to be actually very surprised how this is going to revolutionize what's going on. And it has nothing to do with all it is, we're talking data processing. And that alone, though, is so powerful to process such large amounts of data in real time. That's the key. It's real time data processing.
Well, the AI difference is making decisions too, right? So the idea was that before you could automate all this stuff, but it would just give you information and you still had to make the decisions. Now AI could basically come up with its own solutions.
Yep. And we don't have to do it hands off. That can reduce my staff. I mean, if we wanted to do this, I would have to hire 5 more people alone on the revenue management side to do this easily. And these are financial people. These are big salaried employees. With this, we won't have to do it, and I can scale that unlimited. So I'm talking 5 people for our 4 million net rentable square feet. Think about it, 20 million net rentable square feet. The amount of staff that it would take is not even doable. Where today, you can do it and scale it. And now it can go down, though, to small properties. And that's the thing with AI. So once you have the data sets, it can actually be applied to small properties, yet the cost isn't associated with it. So I can lease out the software, and even an individual small property now can utilize it, where before, even the enterprise software and things that are 10, 15 grand a pop, right, that you have to pay for, these huge things, it's not worth it for small operators. So this tech is bringing down the barriers for individuals to compete like REITs. And that is what gets me excited. I love that because they can.
Yeah, this is. It's funny because I was thinking of saying something like this earlier, but it's 100% the case. What you just said. I mean, we look back to the internet revolution from the late 90s, early 2000s, and what did that do? That leveled the playing field between large companies that were national or multinational, and local businesses. So if you had a national brand that sold cookies, for example, and then there was another company that was in a small little town, there was not a level playing field. One had higher brand recognition, one had higher access, obviously. The other one, you basically had to be local. Internet changed all that. Internet basically leveled the playing field and said, hey, this small company now has large reach, just like this large company. Same thing with AI. You get these automatic economies of scale where these small properties, these small operators like us, relatively speaking, can in many ways get the same advantages and the same economies of scale as the BlackRocks and the other super large companies out there, because we have access to the same data, we have access to the same technology, we have access to the same AI.
Well, and currently we have to pay tens of thousands of dollars for these legal documents for each of these syndications that we do, and eventually it'll just be an AI.
Don't even get me started on that racket.
Money well
Eventually,
spent.
there'll just be this AI that will just type in a few things that we want in our PPM, and it'll just spit it out for us, and we won't need these high priced, flashy lawyers coming in with their sunglasses and suits and trying to.
Well, we can pay them $25 an hour to review the stuff that we're creating ourselves, right?
Dude, first of all, you're not that far off. I think AI is going to definitely revolutionize that, and we're working on that, and hopefully we'll be hopefully I'm like AJ, pretty soon here we'll be announcing some new platform where you can use AI to put together your legal compliance.
Can AI keep me out of prison?
No, that's the problem. Not to get derailed on the topic. That's a topic for another show, I think. But that's definitely an interesting topic. And we've been teasing an AI show for since we started the show. So maybe we should do an AI.
We should get. Can you imagine? Like, have you seen those little robots? Like, it's the iPad and it's stuck to like the tires and the wheels around. Can you imagine them just? We're like, okay, who wrote this PPM for you? And this little robot rolls into the into the courtroom. It's like, yeah, I did. Okay. We should move on though. We're getting a little long here, but it's an exciting topic. The whole automation, AI stuff, and as Mauricio said, we should hit on again. But hey, have you guys heard? There's an election coming up. You heard that,
dude? Before you start your topic, I literally thought the election was like 6 weeks. I wasn't sure if it was 6 weeks or 7 weeks. So I'm pretty sure it's about 6 or 7 weeks away. And I checked the calendar; it's 2 weeks away.
I can't even.
You want a fun fact? In Canada, the entire election cycle is 6 weeks. So like ours is like a year. Like it even starts even prior to year. The entire thing, they call an election. So it's a whole thing where like you can actually call elections in certain years. And once the election's called, they have 6 weeks, and the debates, everything happens all in that 6 weeks. And
well, how long is it? Like, this one's been pretty short too, though. This one started a couple months ago.
this one started 9 years ago.
Well, no, for he's saying for these candidates, it's they've this elections. It was only been a couple.
I feel like there's only been one election for the last decade.
Yeah, I don't know how many texts you guys have been getting just today on have you registered to vote, but
anyway. Harris never texted me. I don't understand why.
No, it's bull. I can't even tell which side it is now. They try to mask it,
dude, it's so crazy. You go and you like delete it, report it as spam. I don't know how they can get it back. You text no, it doesn't matter. They keep
comes
spamming
from a different one.
I don't care who you're voting for, red, blue, or other, but go vote.
You sound like the text message I got today, Jay.
Why?
You? Are you sending me these text messages?
Jay is just AI.
I keep replying stop, and it's just actually Jay. He just picks a new number and sends it to me. Like, fuck that guy. I'm going to get him.
I know Kyle and AJ are going to vote. I need to start sending these to Mauricio.
What I don't understand is why voting is not either on a weekend or a holiday, or they make election day a holiday so everybody can go vote without worrying about leaving work. And all
we could talk about this, but it would get highly political.
All right, let's do a show on that. Why is election day not a holiday that people? Here's what I was thinking. It's only a holiday you get the day off if you vote. Like if you vote and you got your little sticker, I voted, then you can skip work. If not, you got to go to work.
Dude, I'd make so much money selling those stickers. I would make so much money selling those stickers.
I think most Americans would support making Election Day a national holiday. So
same as the day after the Super Bowl should be a national holiday. Anyway, Realtor.com just released a study that predicts how homeowners from different states with one political leaning are shifting to states of the opposite party. So basically, they're trying to determine which states are changing political affiliations based on the homeowner searches and purchases. So, Jay, why don't you just walk us through kind of what they were trying to say there? It's a little complicated.
Yeah. So, I mean, the point...
a bunch of nonsense is what it was. It's a bunch of nonsense. But, Jay, you go ahead and try and figure this out, and then I'll tell you how it's a bunch of nonsense.
No,
Mauricio, just because you didn't read the article, you showed up.
I read the article, and it's a bunch of nonsense, but go ahead.
So here, the thought is that Realtor.com basically took a whole bunch of data from where people are buying houses and selling houses to kind of determine where people are moving, which let's call them red and blue people moving from red and blue states to other red and blue states. And so kind of trying to determine how this migration is going to impact whether states continue to be red, continue to be blue, turn red to blue, turn blue to red, et cetera, et cetera. Let's just jump right into the data, and we can talk about, to talk about why this matters. For us as real estate investors, obviously politically it matters from an electoral map, but that's not what we're here for. We're here to talk about how this impacts us as investors. As investors, we've talked often on this show about how certain states and just flat out, red states tend to be more landlord friendly. Blue states tend to be more tenant friendly. And so, if you're an investor, you probably, if you care about your landlord friendly laws, you probably want to invest in red states. And so the question becomes, what states are going to be transitioning from red to blue or blue to red? So we kind of have an idea of which direction we should be thinking about shifting our investing over the next few years, assuming that these trends continue to play out. And so of the 50 states, Realtor.com basically said 35 of them aren't going to change much. There are blue states that might get bluer or less blue, but they're going to stay blue. They are red states that are going to get more red or less red, but they're going to stay red. And then there are a couple of swing states, Michigan and Pennsylvania, that it's really unclear which direction they're going to go. But then there's another 15 states that have a reasonable chance of shifting direction over the next several years, or at least they're in the process of shifting directions now. There are 7 blue states that are trending redder. There are 3 red states that are trending bluer, and then there are 5 swing states that are kind of not red or blue right now. They're kind of purple, but are shifting either blue or red.
And so for the record, Jay, this was a 4-year thing, right? Like they went back to the last election and then looked how they voted in all the different states and the different counties there, and then they extrapolated it to now, correct?
Yeah, and I will post if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you want to go over to the YouTube, I will post a link to the article so you can read more details, see the pretty colored maps and stuff. But if
you are listening to this on the podcast and you do go to YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe to the video.
So so the 7 blue states that are looking to trend redder are California, Colorado, Illinois, Minnesota, New York, Oregon, Washington. I think California is nowhere near at risk of trending red. New York's not at risk of trending red. Minnesota is probably not at risk of trending red. Oregon and Washington are not at risk of trending red. Colorado and Illinois are 2 that are interesting to look at there. 3 states that are red that could shift bluer: Alaska, Florida, Ohio. Alaska, I'm not sure any of us invest there. I don't know much about it, but Florida and Ohio are 2 interesting ones that we could talk about shifting red to blue. And then on the swing states, we have Wisconsin and Nevada, which are kind of purple right now. They could shift bluer, and Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina that are purple that could swing redder. I think Wisconsin is pretty much already treated pretty blue in terms of laws. Nevada would be an interesting one to discuss. And then Georgia and North Carolina are already treated pretty red. I don't know about Arizona. So I think the interesting ones to discuss here are things like Colorado, Illinois, Florida, Ohio, and maybe Nevada, because those are the ones that could realistically shift over the next few years enough that it could be impactful on legislation.
Yeah, but Jay, the problem I have is with the methodology of the article. So Realtor, if you want to check out first of all, it's super confusing, but they made a bunch of it. It's all about the assumptions, right? As me as the lawyer of the group, assumptions are the mother of all fuck ups. And so all these assumptions they were making, like they were literally assuming that because California, for example, which is the state where I live in, because California is a blue state and people are moving out of the blue state, they're thinking, hey, those are blue folks that are moving to Arizona or to Florida, and therefore they're making the state redder and they're making potentially Arizona and other things bluer, when the facts are completely opposite. I mean, that's all based on the data they're seeing on Realtor.com and people looking at homes. But the reality is the vast majority of people who are leaving California, not the vast majority, but the majority of or a plurality of people leaving California are people who tend to be Republicans or non-affiliated. So it's actually the folks that are the red. You have a red state, and that's like the red folks that are leaving. So there's a bunch of assumptions in this report, which is what I have issues with. But not to say it's not an important topic to look at. I mean, if you're a real estate investor, clearly demographics plays a huge role in where you should be investing, because where people go will drive demand in real estate. But this idea that depending on where people leave, again, from California or just people leaving a blue state, all the blue people are leaving and it turns into a red state.
I agree. I agree and disagree. So I agree on the premise that, so there's the idea that, okay, if you're leaving California to move to a red state, so let's say Texas, then one of the reasons that you're moving there is because you like it better there, and you probably like the way they live and the way they are maybe politically affiliated, and that's one of the reasons you're moving there. But it's also, we're seeing this real time because we invest a lot in Texas, and there's a saying in Texas where it says, "Don't California our Texas," and it's
Don't
literally
Californicate Idaho.
Yeah, so it's literally people in Texas who are pissed off that all the California people are coming there, and their premise is that, hey, you came here because you liked it here. Don't bring your California values and bring your California ideas to Texas. We were doing well before you. don't change shit.
But my point is the Californians that are leaving are already Trump supporters. So what are you talking about?
They're not though.
Well, that's what I think. But the data supports the fact that not the majority, because it's like 29% versus 27%.
You have whole regions of Texas that were the dominant factor, up to 25 to 35%, like in Austin, came from California, and it switched it blue in 10 years.
Yeah, Austin's basically California, like a suburb of California at this point.
And maybe that might be the fact that the majority of people who left California that there were in the blue folks that left California ended up going to Austin, but then everybody else went somewhere else.
Well, so we're seeing it in Houston too. It's a major shift, and I'm going to try and bring it back to Jay's point.
Boise elected their first governor that was a Democrat in like 20 years, and it's something like 37-8% of the people that had moved to Boise in just the last 10 years were from California.
Well, they all moved to major cities too, right? So that's what you're going to see, like the major cities that are all. When you look at electoral map, it's already kind of that there now. Like if you look at Texas, the entire state's red except for it looks like tiny dots, but that's where all the people live. So that's why it's actually much closer than you think if you just looked at the overall map. But like Houston is a great example. We got multiple properties in Houston, and years ago, so back 2019, prior to that, like the eviction laws were very simple. Like we had people out in like as early as 13 days. It was max 30 days for an eviction. Now the laws have shifted and they've gotten a lot more liberal, as would be the argument, where now it's like 60, 75 days to get out of there. And they've implemented these laws that basically like tenants can come, and if they've shown that they have a hardship or a job loss or things like that, you have to give them even more time. And these were never laws that were implemented in Texas before, but now we have, to AJ's point, we have new Democratic mayors, we have Democratic representatives, and they really want to represent the tenants. And they're putting in all these new laws that it's now become like the whole reason that we were in Texas was we used to joke about how easy it was to kick people out if they didn't pay. Now it's becoming like we might as well go back and start investing in Pennsylvania again, because like it's some of these laws are
and
just
they're mimicking those laws, like from California. That's where they're pulling them from.
So I guess one of the big questions here is, as investors, which do we care more about? Do we care about the red states that are likely to turn blue, meaning we should be thinking, hey, let's slow down our investment there? Or do we care more about the blue states potentially that are going to turn red, thinking, okay, maybe we make some bets that could pay off, maybe not pay off? Or do we care about them equally? But I mean, if we're not going to actually...
I would be concerned the first one you said, Jay, because if it's blue turning red, you're like, okay, but then the laws, when they happen, will open up an opportunity. Because if I'm buying into it, I'm buying into it at that level, right? So, but like red states turning blue means we're buying into it with an expectation that it'll work this way and that we're going to have it in our investment strategy and plan, everything else. And then all of a sudden, as that changes and it mirrors the other places that we're trying to avoid, and then it doesn't play out like you want. That's how I would think of it. Because I think if you're buying in a blue, hoping that it'll turn red, I'm just wondering if that's offsets it. I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, it definitely makes it more interesting, though. Like, I would agree that I'd be more concerned about investment strategy if we're already in a state like we are that is shifting bluer. If we're cities that are shifting bluer, that we have to start like, okay, when we're shifting our underwriting right now about like how long and how much are we spending on legal fees and how long our evictions are taking, and you know our bad debt and things like that are a lot higher than they used to be because people are just not paying, and they're learning they're pulling the California, they're learning how to work the system, and they're learning how to stay in the property without paying for longer. So we're having to shift that. But I also like the entrepreneur in me is kind of saying, hey, like, what is this an opportunity in some of these other states? Like in particular, we're talking about these swing states that could be trending redder with Arizona. You know, Phoenix and Arizona was already kind of a hot spot for investment, but like, you know, is Georgia and North Carolina, are they a little bit even more enticing now to move into, because we know that the shift isn't going the other way?
Yeah, but what's more important? You guys are boots on the ground, so I'm going to defer to you guys. But what's more important to you guys? Is it more important to figure out what the landlord-tenant laws will be, so it's more friendly and harder to people to vote to evict people, Or is it more important to figure out there's all these demographics moving to a particular area, and therefore a bunch more people need a place to stay?
They're actually kind of the same if you look at it. Like I would say, like I didn't read the entire study. Like I just read the article on it, and I
the
didn't
headline?
like.
You read the headline?
Well, no, I read the whole article, but I assume there's like a whole data set behind it, and I didn't dive into that. But I'm assuming when it says like states are shifting bluer, that's a lot to do with a lot of red people leaving more so than blue people moving in. I don't
Well,
know
that was
because
one of my points, but like, let's take Austin, which is a classic example, because Austin obviously is in the great state of Texas. I lived in Austin for a couple of years. Austin has clearly turned blue, and there's no. I mean, I think it's got a mayor. I think that's now blue.
Austin is the San Francisco of Texas.
Well, San Francisco. Well, okay.
Well, it like literally from a tech standpoint. I
understood.
mean,
But
a lot of
my
companies.
point is, if you can go back 10 years and say, hey, look, all these, let's say even all of them were from California, they're all blue people, right? They're all going to be moving to Texas. Let's stay away from Texas. I mean, let's stay away from Austin. I would argue, if you invested in Austin 10 years ago, how's it going? I mean, you had all that population growth because of people moving to Austin. Whether they're red or blue, does it really matter as long as the population is growing and the demand for housing increases and therefore prices are going to increase? That's why I'm asking, is it more important to focus on demographic shifts from a demand standpoint, or is it more important to focus on the landlord-tenant laws to see how hard or how long it takes you to evict a tenant?
Well, and I guess my point was, and my wife has been beating this drum forever about where we should be shifting our investment strategy based off of what demographic of people are moving where. And I would say that a lot of the majority of these high growth states are blue people, as you say, moving to red areas. So it's the New Yorkers who are moving to Florida. It's the Californians who are moving to Texas and Arizona.
Who cares if they're red or blue? The fact is they're moving, and that's going to increase demand for your property. So why not buy there?
Well, it's you have to factor in both sides, though, I guess, is the thing.
You can get demand in other places. All things being equal is what we're talking about. So, like, because if you're in a red state, they are growing at much higher rates, both in income, population, right? All that kind of stuff. So you're right, Mauricio, from a standpoint, that's one of the reasons why people are investing in red states, because the population growth. The population growth, though, is happening because of the cost differential and the lower regulation. And so I get what you're saying. It's a cart, right? It's a chicken and the egg kind of thing. But so I think that's the balance that you're looking at, because as it turns blue, those growth rates will slow down. That's how it works.
Then you move the hell out of there and you reposition your portfolio.
Well, so that's our point. Is that now, I guess, is the point where we are seeing that shift, and you obviously don't want to be in the back end of it. And are we seeing that shift that we're saying, okay, like obviously this is just one article, realtor.com, right? And to your point, what's their methodology and how is it? But we're going to be able to see this with the results of the election. Like when the election results come out, we will be able to see, okay, like what was the shift in these different ones? And more importantly, I think it's city. Like we're looking at states, and we used to, when we did analysis of which markets we were going to move into, we started at the state level and then we worked our way down. And I think it's becoming a lot more important now with these shifts of the states can be a lot different politically than in the cities versus the states, that we have to actually just not say, okay, cross off an entire state because that state's too blue. Cross off the entirety of New York. Like it used to be like, we're not doing New York State at all. Now I'm saying, okay, let's go back and look at this. Maybe it's on a city level. Maybe it's a little bit different. So I just think it's not necessarily like, okay, we just read this article and we make decisions off of it, but it's something to kind of, whenever you do however often you do it, quarterly, biannually, when you look at your markets and decide if you're going to move into new markets or shift your portfolio or whatever, it's something to consider these shifts politically.
And like this, so I'm sharing a screen right now that for those of you on the podcast basically have ranked, and we've looked at regulation over individual states as well as the United States, its effect on business, real estate, and different aspects. When you look at landlords and the impact of the regulation on it, and judging just on a scale, because you can't take a cross, but if you took the averages, put on a scale 1 to 10, the multiples associated with the landlords as a cost differential, it's major from Texas to California, associated with rent control compliance, eviction process, property maintenance, security deposit management, property taxes. The only one that in Texas is more, and that's because they don't have income, but their overall taxes, right? But we're looking at the property side. And then local regulations. And most of these are not only more, it's a multiple. You're talking multiple times more. And
at least 2x.
At least. And then 2, that doesn't even move into when we're talking about this is maintaining. I didn't put on here the actual like cost of development, right? When you look at those costs, so when you're talking about holding cost of putting it out of the ground, the more the left leaning that goes, if you go across the line where I live from Boise in Ada County to Meridian, the difference, only because one is Democratic and one is Republican, is wild on the time that it takes, the holding cost, the everything associated with it, dealing with one local government for the other, just being across the board. All the growth is happening elsewhere. In fact, Boise was having a lot of issues and reductions where all the growth was going over the line. So it's that as that changes, that cost changes, there's a real live economic change. And for a property owner, you can be in areas like in Boise that actually ended up stagnating or even getting worse, where then across the border, house prices were doubling and everybody was growing, right? And so these things, although they happen slowly, there is a tipping point. And at that tipping point, things start to happen fast because it's just not competitive and it doesn't make economic or financial sense. So everybody just moves over. You really don't want to get caught in that.
It is. And the tipping point is so important. It's so critical because literally one election, you can have the local city, local county. You get the legislature in there, and literally like the next day after the election, they can introduce bills to change the law.
And
so that's
Boise,
how quickly it can happen.
We literally saw that. It was they swept, Democrats swept, and it was
Philadelphia. Like the big thing with us is obviously evictions. AJ, I'm sure you don't. That's not as important to you because you don't really. There's not really many laws about kicking stuff out as much as people. But like Philadelphia, like just
kidding me? There's whole TV shows about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because it's fun.
It's fun, yeah. Yeah, kicking out actual families is not so fun. So Philadelphia obviously made the news because Philadelphia evictions are down 41%. Oh my God, this is amazing. Well, you know why? Is because now Philadelphia passed a law that requires landlords to negotiate with delinquent tenants out of court before being able to sue them for eviction. So like it's just laws like this where like, who do you think's getting the short end of this? Before you could just take them to court and you kick them out. Now we got to go through the court system and negotiate with them. And it's just one of the reasons that like, we're not like, we live in Philadelphia and we don't invest in Philadelphia. You can't kick these people out. And that's just a new recent law that they've passed. So
you should have moved to Sarasota when you had the chance.
Yeah, and just insurance rates are great there, right, Jay?
House across the street from me still vacant. Come be my neighbor.
Yeah, the one that backs on the swamp that has alligators in it. That's
a swamp. You mean beautiful lake with beautiful alligators?
Anyway, so my point is it makes a big difference. Like one single change like that can affect your bottom line by a few percent. And when you're dealing with investors' money and your bottom line changes by a few percent, then that's a huge deal. All right, are we wrapping this up? It seems like a good kicking off point. You guys ready for a top 10?
Let's do it. Mauricio is so excited.
I was going to say just to rub it in. Here's that disgusting lake that Kyle was talking about with alligators.
I didn't say disgusting lake. I said swamp with the alligators. It does have alligators, though. You'll admit that.
That is beautiful.
That could be. You could live right there. You could be my next door neighbor.
You know what you don't see in that picture is the humidity and the mosquitoes.
No mosquitoes. So they actually spray, and we have these lanai cages. For anybody that's watching on YouTube, these cages over the pools, so you don't get bugs in, and they spray in Sarasota, so you don't get.
So you go into the swimming pool while you're in jail. That's great, Jay.
I always thought that's interesting. Florida has all those. It's like nowhere else that you see that very prevalent, but like every pool in Florida has that.
When I went there, I remember for the first time a long time ago, obviously, but I was like, what is this? Like, why is this here? Right? It was interesting. it makes a difference with the bugs and lizards and stuff.
Well, and also it actually extends your swimming season too, Jay, right? Because like it's kind of like a little greenhouse. It keeps it warm in there and so. Anyway, top
they have
10.
They have those in Houston too. I've got a buddy of mine who's got one in Houston. But anyway,
Yeah, you see them other places, but like Florida, like every pool has it. Yeah, like if there's a pool that doesn't have it, you're like, ooh, those weird people.
That's what we call a clue.
All right, top 10. I'm just doing counties that will determine the election. I was doing the research on
Maricopa.
Okay, so yes, I was going to get there to the end, but thank you for skipping. So anyway, I was in doing the research for that last topic.
You don't need to do research. Just ask me. It's Maricopa.
Well, there's a list though, Mauricio, and yes, Maricopa is on there.
And yes, it's number one.
I'll do
Philadelphia County.
Well, so Philadelphia County and their suburbs. So Philadelphia, the Philadelphia County is very blue. So are their suburbs in around, which I live in one of them, which is Bucks, Montgomery, Chester, and Delaware. But an interesting one is Chester has in previous elections has flipped red. So keep an eye on that one. Another smaller one is called the WOW counties around Milwaukee. Washington, Ozek, Key, and Walk something. Anyway, those are an important one. Georgia's Fulton County. That one made some news. That's obviously around Atlanta. A big one that's actually North Carolina is a buzz point right now because the hurricane and it's Buncombe County, Asheville, North Carolina. People are keeping an eye on that one. Also Charlotte, which is Mecklenburg, and then Michigan's Wayne County. Obviously, that was it was one of those last ones last time in Detroit. And then the big two are, to Mauricio's point, Maricopa, which is Phoenix. 60% of all of Arizona's voting happens in Maricopa County. And then, any guesses on the final one?
Maricopa.
Clark County in Nevada. It's basically encompasses Las Vegas, and 2/3 of Nevada's votes go through Clark County. So
anybody that lives in any of those counties, I don't care who you're voting for, red, blue, or other, get out and vote.
Yeah, and I'm in one of those, so I feel kind of special, guys. Like I'm one of these. Like my vote matters more than yours.
What's that movie? Isn't there a movie where there's like one guy who's a defining vote or something, or somebody like? There's a movie like that? You guys are looking
called The Godfather.
We're just gonna blame you no matter what.
Yeah, blame Canada, right? Isn't there a song like that?
Blame Canada, now blame Philly.
My vote counts like 10 times more than Mauricio's. Mauricio's vote doesn't count at all. He's basically
he's not going to vote.
He doesn't need to over in California.
He's too busy hanging Christmas ornaments.
They just vote for him.
We didn't talk about that. Yeah, we're 2 weeks away from Christmas.
He's voted 10 times early ballots.
Yeah, I'm on. Yeah. Wait a minute. Yeah, I'm on the
vote early, vote often.
And he didn't even have to do anything. They did it for him.
I just got my fifth round of ballots in the mail today, and I'll be filling those out and sending them out. So
it's actually if you buy Christmas decorations before November, you automatically vote Democrat. It just happens. It's you don't even get a choice. Jay's for you, those of you that Jay's wiggling his votes. His apparently he has two. I don't know. You get to vote twice.
One is Carol's. I'm going to make her sign it.
I've got my dogs that in dog years they're eligible to vote, so they can vote. I mean, there's a lot of people that can vote. My AI bot that can vote.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right. Quick game at the end. Going back to we listened to Cody Sanchez did a presentation at BPCon. And I've listened to a lot of her stuff, so a lot of it wasn't new to me. But one of the comments that really stuck with me is she looked around everyone in the room and she said, every single older billionaire would trade places with you. So the idea that basically you can't buy time, right? And so I wanted to play a little Would You Rather. So would you rather be 65 years old but have $1 billion, or be 40 years old and absolutely broke?
Oh, are you kidding me? Like I'm almost at 65 already. I'll take 65 and $1 billion.
I'll go back. I'll go back to 40 and broke.
I'm 40, so that kind of sucks that these are my options. You're basically making me go broke, or I have to give up 15 years. I'm really getting screwed on this.
Or you also have to give up your math skills because it's 25 years.
Oh yeah, 25 years. Thank you. I already think I'm 50. Oof.
Here's the wrinkle, though. Do we get to do 40, but with what we know now, or do we go 40 with what we knew back in the 40s?
Yes, you get to know what you know now. I'll allow that. You're not broke because you're dumb. You're broke.
So that's
just
25
because you lose
years. So that's weird. So I may have to reconsider. So in 25 years, I mean, I might go back to. Well, I'm not 65 though. I'm only 51. So that's 11 years.
I can do a lot of damage in 25 years.
Can you do $1 billion worth of damage, though, Jay? Think about the kids, Jay. Think about your kids.
Well, it's only 13 years.
generation.
It's only 13 years for me.
Mm.
Like I'm gaining 13 years.
Yeah, and I think with $1 billion, you're also buying all the latest technology to make you live a little bit longer too.
But I'm still not going to eat healthy. That's the thing.
But at some point, you're absolutely right, Mauricio. At some point, you're actually going to make more time and actually probably live way higher quality of life.
That's a
Then
good
you
point. Can
would.
$1 billion
It's gonna cost you,
buy
but it's
you
going to
more than
cost you $1
20
million a month to do it, and
And
now
no
you
problem.
can't do it.
That's a really
Yeah.
good point. $1 billion might buy you 15 years right now.
Easily.
Right, I
Yeah.
think so.
Ah, so
That's
you're only
why I
giving
think
up 10.
65 and a billionaire would work.
Magic Johnson had a year left to live 20 years ago. So
That's a good point.
And with $1 billion, I could buy all 3 of AJ's jets. Let's be
so
awesome.
Mauricio, what's your final verdict? Are you switching?
No, I'm 65 and a billionaire. Yeah, 65 and billion.
I'm
Yeah.
40 and broke.
AJ?
This sucks. I just turned 40 and now I'm going to lose everything, or I have to go to.
Hey, AJ, I need a partner. Come partner with me.
All right, me and Jay. We're broke now. We're partners at 40.
There you
But
go.
think of the kids, though. Think of the kids. The legacy that you'll leave being a
I
billionaire.
am. I'm going to lose 25 years with them.
But that's the thing. Like, are you losing it all? But everybody still knows who AJ is. Does he still have his YouTube channel? Everybody still?
Well, they'll know more of him. He'll have $1 billion.
Only if I'm 65.
If he goes back to 40 and broke, well, that's true. Like, I'm thinking of me. Like, if I go back to 40, when I was 40, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, yeah.
AJ is going to have a tough time convincing people he's smart at investing if he's all of a sudden broke.
Put it this way, being 40 and being able to make fun of Mauricio, who's 65, is worth being broke.
Worth it.
Just go and do sit-ups right in front of him all the time. Look what I can do.
But then, AJ, you've got to negotiate an exception in the contract and make sure you skip all the health bullshit as well. So you don't have to go through that.
That's right. You're absolutely right with that. I got to be like really healthy if that's the case.
Well, I'm just banking on, because out of all of us, I'm the one who's their wife is the breadwinner. So it doesn't matter if I'm broke.
The funny thing is with Kyle, you need to give up years either way.
Well, yeah, I got 1 year to 40. So
Yeah, but so you're either giving up a year and losing everything, or giving up 26 years and gaining $1 billion.
Yeah, but as I said, like the earning potential of my family is all on my wife's side, so I might as well be broke at 40 because she's just going to keep trucking along.
Or start pulling your weight and make $1 billion.
Well, here's the interesting thing: if Kyle's 65 and a billionaire, there's a reasonable chance Ashley might stay with him.
Yep, that's true. That's the question, guys. What would your spouse vote for?
Ooh, there
What would
you
your
go.
spouse
She would
you
definitely
to-
vote for me. She'd vote for me to be 95 and a billionaire.
It actually gets better the older we get because we're going to die.
All right, Jay, for that comment, you get to go first. What's your plug for tonight?
Oh, what's my plug? I don't have a plug. Come back to me.
Mauricio.
Real estate.
Mauricio, by the way, I'd like to point out I respect your commitment to the glasses
Yeah,
the entire episode.
You guys all bailed early, man. You guys all bailed. It's called discipline, consistency, all the shit I usually don't have. I'm going to plug my my weekly Real Estate Syndicate Alive. If you are a syndicator, capital raiser,
How can you plug it when you cancel it, Mauricio?
I know I had to cancel it today. I had a little bit of an emergency today, and so we had to cancel last minute. It was me, not my guest. I had an amazing guest today to talk a little bit about Trump and Harris. But I'll be back next Tuesday. RealEstateSyndicateAlive.com. Come join us live and either ask me or guests questions.
There you go. That's an expensive time being able to ask Mauricio questions. That usually costs tens of dollars. Jay, you ready, or we got to go to AJ first?
No, I'm ready. I just need to grab the glasses. I didn't want to be left out.
We got Neo back.
Grabbed a different pair. ApartmentAddicts.com. So I have started a newsletter where every day I'm putting out tips for how you can kickstart your multifamily journey. So if you want to be a multifamily investor and you're not currently, and you want to get our newsletter, our daily free newsletter on how to do that, go to apartmentaddicts.com, scroll down to the bottom, and fill out that little form at the bottom with your name and email.
Is this different from the Drunk Real Estate daily newsletter that we put out?
Yes, that is the dredaily.com, dredaily.com. That's our daily economics newsletter where we have almost 800 people now getting our daily updates on economic headlines.
That's Jay, I'd like to point out, I love that. I love that little thing. I read it every day.
Well, I was hoping we could actually use it to kind of figure out topics for this show, but
I did look at it the last few days, and it was I couldn't. But previously, it has worked out that we found topics from there, but not this week. But it is depressing too, just seeing that 10-year Treasury continue to be up over
4.2% as I record this.
I'm telling you guys, it's all separated, man. You guys don't listen to me. I tell you how it works, and you guys don't listen.
Mauricio, you tell us a lot of things, and every once in a while, a broken clock is right.
Hey, we did have that discussion. We said,
AJ, what are you plugging?
I don't know. Follow me on Instagram, AJ Osborne. I don't know. That, go to website. I'll tell you what, though. My part of, since we're talking newsletters, I put in our newsletter a wrap up of this podcast, and then I also am putting the DRE newsletter in there, and I love it. It's like one of my favorite sections because we just kind of go over and summarize key topics, and we'll put in links, including the link to our DRE newsletter. It's just a good. There's so much value in this podcast. I love having these discussions, and it makes us think, and it makes my team think about the coming week and what's happening. And there's a lot of quality in this stuff. So,
and I get to hang out with you guys.
That's right. It's great.
Don't act like, Jay, you weren't commenting in the chat before about how our episodes are too long and we need to shorten this up and we got to wrap this up constantly.
Okay, wrap it up.
One of those things, yeah.
Wrap it up.
I'm going to plug my wife, Badass Investor, at Badass Investor on YouTube and Instagram. Don't tell her that I wore her Fendi sunglasses for the episode because she'll probably get pissed at me. So it's 50% chance she watches this episode. So I'll take a chance on that. All right. I don't know what you guys, but my drink is gone. I'm gonna go hit the head.
See you guys.
So I will see you next Tuesday.
I'll see you tomorrow for weigh-in.
See you guys.